Hey, welcome. It's Captain Matt, Boater Secret Weapon. I want to thank you for joining us for this Sunday night live. We're getting ready to start here in just a couple of minutes here. We'll start about 8:30, but I wanted to welcome you. If you've never been to a live, here's what you can expect. Just go ahead and chat in your comment section, on whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on YouTube. Just ask your question, leave your comment there, and then as we go through the time, I just kind of scroll down all the comments and I try to answer them. Now, if it's something that I need to ask you a question, I may ask you a question and just put it in the chat again, and I'll come back and I'll get that information so I can give you a more personalized response, something that's going to really add value for you. This is just something I do. One, it's great fun. I really enjoy it. It's helpful for the community, just sharing my knowledge. Now, one thing that you need to know, I don't know everything about boats. I know a lot about boats. I've been a boater since I was 5. I've sold boats. It's something that is a big part of my life. With that said, I don't know everything. Matter of fact, sailboats, have zero experience with sailboats. Bass boats, very little experience there. Bow riders, deck boats, center consoles, jet boats, twin engines, stern drives, outboards, inboards, all of that I have experience with. And if I have an answer, I'll give you my best answer. If I don't have an answer, I'll try to give you a resource that will be valuable for you. If I have an opinion, I'll try to give you that opinion, but let you know this is what I think, not what I absolutely know. So I look forward to it. Here's a little video intro that a subscriber made for me. Thanks, Bo. And we'll see you on the live when it kicks off here in just a moment. Welcome, everybody. I am Captain Matt, and this is the Sunday Live. And this is going to be a short one today. I took the kids to the pool today and did a bunch of yard work. And as I was cleaning up the yard, I smelled some gas. So I've got the gas company on its way. I think my meter is leaking, is kind of the sense I'm getting. And so at probably about 9 o'clock or so, the gas guy's going to get here, and I have got to take care of that first. As much as I love doing these lives, I prefer to not have my house blow up. So it was right by the meter. I hope he can swap it out, and hopefully we don't have to go to a hotel tonight. But at a minimum, maybe just shut the gas off and be okay. But anyway, welcome everybody that is with us. Ray, good to have you from Indiana. Rob, good to have you back. 68 Camaro, good to have you as well. 3 regulars there. Great to see it. And I've got a couple of questions that have come in, and so I'm going to try this to see. If I can make this work. So, all right. Come on. If you got a question, throw it in. Throw it in the comments. Let me go a little smaller. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. This is a question that came in, and I'm not sure why I'm not smart enough to make this bigger. But let's do it like this, maybe. All right. Hopefully you can read some of that, if nothing else. But yeah, thanks, Rob. Jerry, good to see you from up in Chesapeake. And Chuck, a lot of used Barletta pontoon boats. Hi, there's a used Barletta pontoon boat, is a tri-hull, engine rated 200. I'm thinking of putting 250. What's your thought? Well, my first thought is if it's rated for a 200, don't put a 250 on it. A 250 is heavier, and there's a reason they rate the boats for certain horsepower. So I would be, I don't know what Barletta does different um, between the 200 rating engine well and the up to whatever 600 engine well if they're rated for that much. I know I've seen Avalons with the 600 on it, but they were the twin engine. So just be cautious. Talk to your Barletta dealer and see what their thoughts are. I'm going to come back to this other question, but Chuck, if you've watched my videos, um, if you watch my videos, you know I love Barletta. I think they are the best built pontoon boat on the market. They do a great job. They're rock solid. If that boat has been if that boat has been well taken care of, the engine checks out, everything's good on the test drive, I would say, hey, if you got a good price on it, you feel good about it, it's going to be a boat that does a great job for you. Um, but there's a reason they rated that boat for 200. What is? Let me just check this out here. How much does a 200 Mercury 4A? Okay, so a 200 is 475 pounds dry weight. How much does a 250 Mercury? And that's 570 pounds, or I'm sorry, 527 pounds. So it's 50 pounds more, which isn't a ton, but it also puts a significant amount more torque on that back end. I wish I knew exactly what they did different um, to see why they're rating it that way. But just I would do a double check on that. Okay, just to be yeah, it's not it's that extra weight, 50 pounds, not much, that's I can curl 50 if I'm really working at it. But that extra torque as well that you're putting on the on that. Let me show you what the part Barletta pontoon. It's that engine pod, the motor pod that is. Where am I going to get a good picture? Maybe on Explore. So it's this right here. And the gauge aluminum varies when they use an engine pod that has a higher rating, the gauge of the aluminum is thicker. So man, they're well-built boats. But it's going to avoid any structural warranty that you have for sure. But if you want to call them up or talk to the Barletta dealer and find out, I would be hesitant to do it myself. I'll just tell you that, Chuck. That's my advice. Is that I wouldn't do it, and then I'll let you do some digging there. All right, so yeah, it's 68 Camaro. You're right. At some point, there's a chance that that engine well is going to crack, that motor pod is going to crack, and those welds as well. Not only the gauge of the aluminum, but the support and the welds, all of that stuff is susceptible to damage. So, all right, so let's go to this question here, and there we go. All right, so this guy says, "Hey Matt, I've been on several boats and such, but never owned one. I'm wanting to get a deck boat, not looking for the 100K plus boat, but not the cheapest either." Okay. So we don't need to be premium, but I also want some quality. So that mid tier range is where I would go. Prefer an IO setup. So I'm assuming he's a lake guy, or a freshwater guy at least, something with a lot of get up. So he wants some speed. Looking at StarCraft models with the 6.2. What are your thoughts, recommendations for a good brand of deck boat that's not through the roof expensive? Well, if you look at and this guy's name is Brandon. He sent this via Facebook. I get so many emails like this that I don't have time to answer them individually a lot. But I'm like, hey, maybe this is a good venue, depending on how the live's going, to answer. If you've got another one, well, shoot, um, we got questions coming in. So I would look at Stingray. I would look at Hurricane. Probably Hurricane would be, and again, Brandon, it's going to depend on the dealer in your area. StarCraft is, I would say, in the value category. There's a lot of things in the fit and finish uh, that can get you. Not that can get you. There's a lot of things in their build quality in their deck boats that when I look at it, I say, hey, that's something that's going to cause a problem down the line. Um, but that's that style you can get in Hurricane deck boats and models. Come on. So you're going to get that same type of setup in the Sundeck model, 18 to 20. I'm not sure what size you're looking at. I don't think StarCraft goes up to 21, I think is their biggest one. But anyway, I would look there. I would also look at um, Stingray deck boats. And again, depending on your area, there might be like Southwind. There might be some other brands that I would recommend. These are two of the national ones that I would put in that mid tier. You're going to get some goods. And Stingray is known for building. Their hulls tend to be pretty fast relative to similar size boats. And partly because they're a little bit lighter, but let's see here. They're building most of theirs outboard. Are they doing any? Yeah, that's what I was wondering if they were. I don't think they're doing any IOs right now. They've strictly gone outboard. But if you're okay with an outboard, I would look at a Stingray as well because they do have that faster hull. So just a couple, and then obviously check out my deck boat video. Um, uh, and there's not a ton of deck boats being built right now, but this video might be helpful for you. And then if you watch the bow rider one as well, that might be of interest as well, and worth checking out. All right, so yeah, that's Chuck, hopefully that gives you something to think about. Had a Volvo Penta warranty claim for a defective rubber grip on my throttle handle. Um, Bought it that way last spring. That's that's interesting. It can be the littlest of things. My local dealers last September threw up a lot of roadblocks taking care of it. So I contacted Volvo directly. They confirmed it would be covered. Dealer then ordered the part. Yeah, sometimes then they sat on it all winter, 9 months, finally had a shit fit with the owner of Regal dealer last week. They fixed it Monday. Yeah, and Jerry, we have talked about this a bunch. We've talked about this a bunch on the lives that dealer matters. And during the pandemic, you had to find the boats where you could. But there's always going to be something. And sometimes dealers are like, it's not a big deal. I mean, I remember this when I was selling and I was at a really good dealer. I shopped all the dealers in my area and said, that's the dealer I want to work with. And I went and I worked on them for 6 months to get them to hire me because I had no boat sales experience and the market was in the tank and nobody wanted to spend any extra money. They were all just trying to survive. And here I am trying to get into the industry like a dummy. But even there were times where they were like, just tell them it's fine. Tell them it doesn't need to be fixed. And I'm like, no, they just gave us 50 grand at that time. That was if I sold $100,000 boat, that was a big sale for me back 10, what is that? 09, 13, 14 years ago. And some dealers just have that attitude of, hey, it's a boat. It's not a big deal. That rubber thing it's not going to cause the boat not to run. We got more important things going on. Well, sometimes you gotta get you gotta say no. Squeaky wheel gets the grease, and sometimes you got to do it. So I'm glad you got that fixed. And sometimes that's a good tip is sometimes going to the manufacturer. This is something that's interesting too. Sometimes the manufacturer will tell the dealer no, but when the customer comes to the manufacturer, they're like, "Oh shit, this guy's really upset," and then they'll approve it for the dealer, and they kind of throw the dealer under the bus. That can happen sometimes, not very often. Not, I would guess Volvo probably isn't doing that, but it can happen on the boat brands, and it's interesting to see that if there's a dealer that only buys a couple of these boats, and they're not a ton, and they don't know how they don't know the system well enough to call the right person to tell things the right way. I did an interview in my US Boat Expo with Karen Roberts, who was our warranty administrator when I was at Hall Marine. And she did it for 30 years, and she could get, if there was a legitimate claim, she could get it approved. If there was something that was on the fence, she could get it approved because she knew how to present things to the manufacturer to say, this needs to be done, which then made our customers happier. And it didn't have to come out of the dealer pocket. But my dealer also would sometimes say, I don't agree with the manufacturer. Let's just fix it, get them back on the water, and we will then deal with the manufacturer. But the customer's happy on the boat. I'm just going to work that manufacturer to get paid on the work we did or reimbursed. And at times that can happen too. So I'm glad you got it, but it sucks that that's the situation with the dealer. But hey, Jerry, when you start looking at that Tiara or wherever your next move is, I think you talked about cruiser yachts. I think that was you at some point. Um, No excuses for sitting on a part for 9 months and not bothering to contact. That's ridiculous. I didn't get that part when I read it, that they actually had the part and just didn't bother to call you 200 feet from my boat. Yeah, that's really, really frustrating. My Tahoe fuel gauge sucks. Yes, it does. And it could be some user error. So let me show you this video. How my boat. So I did a video on this on my father-in-law's Cobalt, um, because this is this here. Avoid this mistake. Here we go. So this video So this is a $100,000 plus 25-foot boat, brand new. I think I did this video. What is this video? A year old. So the boat was a year old probably when I did this, and this video might be closer to 2 years old. But essentially, you got to remember, PGC is that you're not in your car sitting on a level street. Okay, if you were sitting on a hill and your gas gauge read wrong, you'd be like, "That's because I'm on the hill." Think about, I don't know where my boat is, but think about how your boat sits in the water. One is that 16, it might sit a little bit bow high, especially if you got some weight in the back, and it's in the water, so it's rocking and rolling a little bit. And that fuel gauge is going to, remember, the float, it's just a float that's in your tank that's floating with the fuel. Well, that fuel cell is a rectangle. It's, might be 8 inches high, 10 inches, 12 inches high, I don't know. But as the boat's bobbing, that fuel is sloshing around in there, which means that your fuel gauge is going to bob a little bit if you're not in perfectly calm water. Now, here's what happens. When you get going, you need to read your fuel gauge at level, standing still, okay? Because as soon as you put that throttle down on your Tahoe, what happens? The bow goes up. Now all the fuel rushes to the back. That float tends to be in the back, and it's going to show you have more fuel than what you actually do. You get up on plane, and you're still bow high. Up on plane, you're still bow high, especially if you use some trim. And what happens? You're reading more fuel than what you actually have. When you settle back down, now you come nose down, and now you're floating level. That's how you need to check your fuel. It could be that. It very often is. It's happened to me. I'm not paying any attention. I look down at the fuel, and I'm like, I know we're getting close, but man, it shows we got a quarter, and we're up running on plane. Well, when I sink back down, now we're below an eighth probably. And in this video, I show, you can see the fuel is at like 36% here. That's sitting flat and level. Check this out. It goes up to 57%. I think that was the high. 58%. And I show the nose, 49. So it went from, where were we at? 37 or 35% sitting flat and level. Up on plane, it jumped up to 58%. Had I been closer to E, that 10% would have climbed up to 30 some percent, and I would have felt good. But that's something that can happen a lot. Now, on the Tahoe, listen, it's a value brand. They got the price down somehow, and one of the ways they did it is they used cheaper materials and cheaper parts. And it could be a bad, the sending unit's not so good, the floats get stuck. There's a lot of things that can happen on a fuel cell, but also just double check that as well. That's a video I wish only 3,000 people have watched that video. I may need to redo that one and give it a more provocative name, because that really could help a lot of people. I've run out of gas more than once, so I know. So I'm throwing it out there. Absolutely, Chuck. But the boat you're going to love. That's for sure. Anyone recommend VesselView? Hey, PGC. I know a lot of people have VesselView, and love it. If you're a gadget tech person, I think you will really like it. And it comes with a lot of great information. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. But there's a lot of people that enjoy having that info right there, and being able to check some things remotely as well. Love the Regal. Good quality fit and finish, slightly better overall. Sea Ray. Yeah, in the cruiser category now, 7 to 10 years ago, I would have said Sea Ray's better. But now I think Regal has stepped up, especially since Sea Ray has changed their approach in the cruiser market for sure. Sounds like the extra driving to find a good dealer would be worth it. Yeah, finding a good dealer. And 68 Camaro, it's even to me switching brands, because I also want my dealer close. And just like Jerry said, hey, my boat was sitting 400 yards from where that throttle handle, that rubber replacement was. And let's say that he found a dealer that was great, but they were 200 miles away. Well, now if it's something that can't easily be shipped and Jerry can't he's got to take his cruiser to them. So I always like to think location and great dealer. And because in my experience, the difference between Brandon asked about what's a good deck boat brand. If I'm shopping deck boats and I like this style, I would go to a Starcraft or a Hurricane or a Stingray, and I would find the best dealer. I wouldn't really be too hung up on the brand. Listen, I've been to IBEX, the Boat Expo, International Boat Builders Expo in Tampa. They're all buying the same shit from the same vendors. There's 4 or 5 resin and fiberglass vendors. There's 2 or 3 windshield vendors. There are maybe 3 or 4 canvas vendors. There are, hardware. There's probably 10 hardware vendors that are selling cleats and lights and that kind of stuff. There's 2 stern drive vendors. There's 5 outboard vendors, and really, for all intents and purposes, on new boats, there's Yamaha, Mercury, Suzuki, Honda, and Tohatsu. They don't have any transoms to speak of. You can get Hondas on as an option, but they're not a major player. There's just they're buying the same stuff, and a lot of the independent dealers, this are the independent manufacturers. They've joined a consortium called, what do they call it? The Independent Boat Builders Association, I think is what it is. See if that's it. Independent Boat Builders Inc. So the Independent Boat Builders Inc. They all combine their buying power because you've got Brunswick, you've got BRP, you've got Bennington's, what's their Polaris. You've got all these conglomerates that have multiple brands, and these independent dealers were having to pay 20, 30, 40, 50% more for the same stuff. But now they say, hey, what if we look at all these brands? Axis, Bennington, Chris Craft, Cobalt, all of these brands, they buy in bulk together. I don't know if that's all of them, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see some good brands in there too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 30, 29 brands that are going together and buying the same stuff from the same vendors. Now, there's premium, mid-tier, cheap in that category as well. But they're essentially using the same stuff. If you go to the boat show and you were to look at the pontoons, especially, it's really prevalent on pontoons. Look at the seat bases, except for a handful, they're identical. The upholstery, other than the colors, and the way they stitch it together, identical. The helms, identical in 50% of the cases. So I would switch brands to go to the better dealer and stay close by home. Yeah, but other than a handful of minor things, I think Jerry has had an outstanding experience with his Regal and really, really loves it. But the dealer can piss you off. It happens. So, next to an hour away, Virginia, second closest Ocean City. Yeah, that location matters. 68 Camaro, that is very true. That the reputation in the industry is bad. Maguire 26X. Anyone recommend the Maguire 26X? I'm. Let me see here. And I'm gonna get called out here shortly. So McGuire 26X. At first, I was thinking, is he talking about McGuire's um, McGregor? I'm not seeing McGuire 26X. McGregor. I don't know McGuire though. 26X boats. Sometimes McGregor. Okay, 26X. Cosmonaut. If you watch the intro, I am not a sailboat guy, so I can't give you any insights on the sailboat world. Just not something I've got a lot of I've got any experience with. So, all right, let's see here. Unfortunately, I got nothing for you there. Regal Dealer told me they prioritize service warranty work specifically for owners who bought from them. If they didn't buy from them, yeah, that is 100% true. Is you're like, I feel like they're not taking care of me. Imagine if you came in with a chaparral and you wanted them to get it fixed. You're not getting on the water this year if that's your plan. Should a boat owner have to go to a manufacturer rather than the warranty manager? They should not have to, but I would have that phone number. And I would, if I didn't get, here's the thing. Listen, you're up in Maryland. Your boating season, you got 4, maybe 5 months because you've got a cruiser. You can extend it a little bit. You got 5 months on the water. If they dick around and you lose a month, that's 20% of your boating season. If they really aren't getting their stuff together, you lose 40% of your boating season. I would have that manufacturer number, and I would try to find a right contact there that's in the warranty department, or a rep that is going to be able to go to the right person. And I wouldn't bypass the dealer initially, because I think you can cause some issues there, and then you're going to get poor service in the future. But if I'm getting poor service, I'm going to be quick to call them to say, hey, I just want to check. They're supposed to be doing this, and this is the story I'm getting. I just want to check because this is really driving me crazy. Hey, the part was sent 3 weeks ago. Okay. Or no, we don't have a warranty claim for that. Okay. Or yeah, this is where we're at, whatever. And then you can give your side and you can try to work the system. You got to be careful though. And if you listen to, I think I've got it set up on a playlist. If you go to, what is going on? Why am I highlighting everything here? The US Boat Expo. You guys can't see my screen. I'm showing all sorts of stuff and you guys can't see it. This US Boat Expo, it's just that this is a technician that I know. We were talking about, this is in the heart of the pandemic, but they're 30, 40, 50-minute interviews of experts in the industry. And it's something that I just put it out there for free. And I just ended up putting it out there on YouTube. But the warranty administrator, this is Karen. She was retired when she did this, but she was awesome, and that's worth a listen if you're interested in knowing how that all works together. 40-foot center console fishing boats are being discounted at West Palm Beach Boat Show, going for less than. Interesting. Thank you for sharing that update, Savvy. I noticed. Who did I notice giving a Bennington Pontoon? I got an email about a warranty. Where was that? There we go. Upgrade your summer with $10,000 off. View offer for details. $8,000 on their their S line on Bennington is their value line. The L line's kind of the middle of the road. Let's see. This for Chuck. I think Barletta. I think yeah, new summer season helpline. That's a cool thing that they do. But no, I guess it wasn't. I thought it was Barletta that I saw a rebate come through for. Chuck, might be something worth looking at, depending on what the deal is on that 2020. Seeing um, what their rebate is, because I thought it was them, but I'm not seeing it on their site. It maybe you have to be in the system as a customer at a dealership, which I mystery shop dealers all the time to see what's going on. But that might be worth a check. But thank you for that update, Savvy. I appreciate it. That happened to me. Yamaha saw the manufacturer at the boat show, told them the dealer wasn't being helpful. That week I got a call. Yes, I've had it happen. This was before I was even in the industry, but I was at the Charlotte boat show. I was living out here. I go to the boat show. If there's a boat show around me, I'm going. And I went to the boat show. I was talking, my parents had a Crown line. Oh, I hear my dog barking. So the gas guy's here. So I got to go. But I talked to the Crown line rep. My parents had a Crown line. They weren't getting the support they needed. I said, hey, I don't even think my parents had talked to the dealer about it. They were just dealing with it. It was a smelly ski locker. It wasn't draining that great. He's like, oh, we got a fix for that. Give me your address and I'll just send them the part that they need. And he took care of it there. PGC, you're welcome. Brock, hey, good to have you. Is this, oh, that's not Brock. I was like, that's a different Brock. Is this summer good to buy new boat, slightly used would be better? I think here's what's interesting is right now, I think the used boat market is still doing okay. From my research, new boats I'm seeing in segments and regions of the country. So it's segments of boats and regions of the country are doing better. So what I'm seeing manufacturers do is they're putting rebates, but they're not advertising them nationally on their website. They're advertising them regionally on digital marketing, like display ads on Facebook and Google. And at dealers, they're saying, hey, you dealers are getting these rebates. And so I think it's a good time to consider new. If that fits your budget, I think it's a really good time to consider new and to see what kind of deal you can make. I really think there's some good opportunities out there on the new side. If you are who is why am I forgetting names today? My mind's on my gas problem. Chuck, looking at a 2020, you may be surprised at how close you can get with the brand new 2023 with the discount, with the warranty. That's going to be a couple thousand more than what you would get the 2024 that's already 3 years into the warranty, and you get a brand new warranty, brand new boat. I think that's where the opportunity is. If you're 5 years or older, I think those boats are starting to come down a little bit as well. But yeah, I think this year, especially after we get past 4th of July, I think there's going to be even more discounting to be had if you're not in a hurry. So, and Brock, that also as if it fits your personal budget. So if you're like, there's worry about the economy, but if your economy is fine, then I think it's a good time. If you're nervous about your income and your capacity to buy this boat, then I think the story's different. There's, I think there's a good chance that we'll have something happening in the economy. Is he here? Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm gonna go. And if it doesn't take very long, I'll come back on. Matter of fact, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna let this live sit. If you guys want to hang out, if it's gonna be more than 5 minutes, I'll have one of my kids come up and say goodbye, and we'll see you next week. But got to make sure my house doesn't blow up. Thank you, everybody. If I don't talk to you, have a great weekend, and I'll see you next Sunday. But maybe I'll talk to you.
I think you'll be fine. He replaced the regulator, but I need you to see if he needs to relight the pilot light. Oh,
tell him that I'll probably be back. Talk to him for a little bit.
I'm not talking to anybody.
Just say hi.
Hi, he said he'll be back here soon. Shouldn't be bad. Okay.
All right, we're back. If you're still there. All right. Sorry about that. If you're still there, we are back, and I will keep answering questions. He changed out a regulator, and we're good to go. So it was leaking. So I'm glad I got that taken care of. So all right. Is it summer good? I think I gave you about all I can on that, Brock. But yeah, just negotiate. That's it. Right now. Here's the position that dealers are in. There are some people that are going to buy and take the deal that they're getting. They're slowing down. If you go in, especially if the dealer has a lot of inventory, a lot of 2020, or if they've got some 2022 and a lot of 2023, you're probably in a position to negotiate a little bit more. And so I would do a lot of working on the dealer and see if you can get that new one pretty close to what you would get the used for. How often should you replace the holding tank vent filter? Once a year, more frequently? I don't think I would go. I would go when you start um, getting a smell, but I don't think you need to do more than once a year. I think once a year is going to be plenty, um, if not even stretching it out more than that. But yeah, those are gonna. I say that if you're using it every weekend, Jerry, like if you're on the boat and you're using it for number one and number two, and you're using it consistently, maybe. But I'm those have a long a pretty good useful life, but it does depend on how much filtering they're doing, if that makes sense. So I would think a year, especially you're not running it 12 months out of the year. I would think a year you'd be able to get a year for sure. Going to look at another boat next weekend. 99 Bayliner Capri Cuddy, nice. Slightly newer than what I had. Very nice. Hopefully that one looks better than the last one you looked at. Kenny, welcome, Kenny. That's a new name. Note finding a good dealer. What's the story on buying through a broker? Is it better to go through a dealer versus a broker? So, Kenny, I've done a video on the difference between dealers and brokers. Here's the difference: is the dealer owns the boat, has a relationship with the manufacturer, but I'm gonna say this: the dealer owns the boat, because I assume you're looking on a used situation. If you're not, let me know, because some brokers will rep some more custom boat manufacturers where they may or may not stock inventory. Probably not in a lot of cases. But if you're talking used, this is the way it is. The dealer actually owns the boat and they are selling it to you, which means that they have put their money in that boat. They have done a mechanical inspection. They have probably done a little bit of reconditioning, maybe not a bunch, but a little bit of reconditioning. I'm going to go bigger on myself here. A little bit of reconditioning. And they put their money into it, or at a minimum, they put that boat on their credit line if they buy boats on credit. But they still have, 30% equity in it or something like that. So that dealer also then has the reputation to put on the line. We sold this boat, you're our customer, and we have to sell 100 boats every year to 150 boats, 200 boats to stay in business. And this is just one of them. So they've got some reputation. Brokers are going to be more like a real estate agent, where they don't own the property. They are just representing it. So a broker says, hey, Mr. Customer that owns this boat, I'll rep it for you because I've got contacts, I've got the systems, I've got the marketing, I've got the expertise. I can take care of the sea trials. I can do the survey. You don't need to do anything. Just give me access to your boat. Pay me 10% of the sales price that we get. We're in it together. I'm trying to get the most out of the boat because that impacts my commission, and I'm going to go to you. Now, what that broker tends not to have is as much skin in the game. So they probably, unless they're an outstanding broker, they probably haven't done any mechanical inspections on the boat. They probably haven't, maybe they haven't even run the boat ever themselves. So they're just going off what the customer says in their boating experience. And Kenny, it depends also on the size boat that you're talking. So if you're talking under, let's say 50, 100 grand, this is definitely the case. As you get higher up, their professionalism improves a lot of times. But there's a lot of brokers, especially on the lower end, that they don't do a whole lot with the boats other than act as the middleman that's marketing the boat. Now, there is precedent out there that says, hey, if you broker a boat and you don't know about something that is that's wrong with the boat that you should, then you can be held liable. And there's cases in Florida, there's cases I think in California, and a couple others over the years that hey, that there's some recourse that the buyer can come back, but it's hard to do. Whereas with the dealer, because they sell so many more boats, typically a broker may sell 10, 15, 20 boats a year. And they're a lot smaller. Their reputation isn't as important to them in a lot of cases. Would it matter? No, because even if you buy a used boat from a dealer or a broker, you still need to do everything that I talk about in this Boat Buyers Toolkit, which if you haven't got that, it's free, Kenny. Go to boatbuyerstoolkit.com. You got to do your inspection. You got to do your sea trial. You've got to check compression or get their report of their mechanical inspection. You got to check the fluids. You got to do all of that stuff regardless of who you go through. Just know that the broker is probably not going to support you as much after the sale as a good dealer will. And I say good because even some dealers will be like, hey, it's a used boat or a broker boat, because they broker too. It's just a different way. They don't own it. They're just helping sell, and they can act as a broker, but be a dealer. So you've got to do your diligence, assuming that, hey, if there's something wrong with this boat, it's my responsibility to find it. So I don't make a bad buying decision. And then, it's not significantly different if you take that approach with it. But if you take the approach of they're the experts, I'm just going to trust them. I'm going to trust a broker a lot less than I'm going to trust a good dealer. But frankly, I'm not going to trust any of them. It's my money. And once I hand it over, I'm not getting it back. I'm not getting it back without a lawyer. So I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I get a good value for my money. Yeah, there's definitely some really good ones out there. There's good brokers out there, and there are terrible brokers, just like there's good dealers and terrible dealers. But there's a lot less. It's a lot less difficult to become a broker in most states. And most states are not regulated. In Florida, they've got some tests that they have to pass. There's a National Broker Association, the ABYC, or not ABYC, American Broker, ABA, maybe, Association, and YABA, Yacht, what is it? Yacht Brokers Association of America, something like that, that has ethics and standards, and you got to pass a test, and you got to get certified. You got to go to classes, continuing education. And so that's a sign that they're a little bit more professional. But just like anything, that association is there to take some money out and to provide training. It doesn't, they're not incented to kick people out, because then they lose their dues. So they just because they're certified by an organization doesn't mean that they're great. Just means that they've met a certain minimum standard. Send you an email exchange. Yeah, I would really, I would appreciate that, and see how that conversation goes. That's awesome that they responded that quick. I'll give Barletta people a call tomorrow. Yes, the house is saved. We're good. Captain, Central Florida. Yes. Okay. So Brock, we talked about the market overall, and the Florida market, I think, is going to see, well, I take that back. The Florida market has one advantage going for it, is all of those hurricane checks came in this year. So there's a bunch of sales that are happening this year because they're replacing boats that got destroyed in the hurricane. What was it? Irene, whatever it was. Whatever the last couple hurricanes in the Gulf and on the Atlantic coast, those checks have started coming in the last 3 to 4 months, maybe even 6 months. And so that's holding that market up a little bit more. And, but that market is gonna, yeah. I'm trying to think. There's enough downward force in that market for a number of reasons, because they pushed a lot of inventory, and the manufacturers pushed a lot of inventory. But you've got that lift from the hurricane funds. Um, but I still think that there's deals to be had. Let's put it that way. Um, I still think there's deals to be had even in the Central Florida market. Um, all right, let's see. John, here's what I think about the Sea-Doo Switch. It's not for me. It seems like a fun boat. I did a video review on it before I had seen one, and I don't like it. For me personally, and I try to keep my personal opinion about things in check on this channel, because what I want to do is I want to give value to everybody, not just people that boat like me and like the things I like, because frankly, I'm not that exciting. I like to go and hang out, throw out the anchor, swim, do some water sports, cruise around in the evening, go watch the show ski team, um, just enjoy the water. And I'm not super adventurous. I'm not a speed demon. So there's a lot of segments of the market that aren't for me. Doesn't mean that one fishing boat's a bad boat. It's just that's not a type of boat that's for me. Cruisers are not for me. I'm not going to overnight on the boat. My wife wouldn't enjoy it, and it loses half the boat. I like the open space. Not for me. But Jerry loves his. The Switch falls into that category for a certain segment of people. I think they're really going to enjoy it. I think it's cheaply made. I think in 5 to 7 years that those boats are going to show the way that they built them. There's some things that just aren't good. And the people that buy them, first time boaters, they're super easy to run from what I understand. Anybody can get on the helm and run it. Great because it's easy, not great because they don't always know what they're doing. And it just like Bayliner gets a bad name a lot of times because on the used market, the Bayliners haven't been taken care of, and the second owner gets a crappy boat, not because it was built so crappy, but because it wasn't taken care of. I think that's what you're going to see on the Switch, on the secondary market, on the second and third owners. I do think that plastic stuff that they use is going to be problematic over time. It's going to yellow. It's going to get an anchor through it. It's going to get damaged real easily. And that's going to be a problem. I don't like how low the fence rail is if you've got kids. There's people that are flipping them. I think that's user error. I think they're doing stupid stuff on them that they have no business doing on a boat like that. But nobody's educated them that it's not a jet ski. You can't go and just crank it with weight on the top. It's going to flip over. You dummy, use some common sense. But it's not for me. With that said, if you really like the idea of ease of operation, if you are going to trailer and never ever leave that boat in the water overnight, and you're going to run it in fresh water, my personal thought is that in salt water, that's going to get stuff growing on the inside, and there's the way they've built it in the fashion that they built. Water's getting up in the hull and you just can't get it out. I think you're going to get growth and stuff in there that's going to be problematic over time, especially in salt water. So that's with that said, I've got friends that are out, I think next weekend, that their brother-in-law and brother has a Switch up in the Carolina mountains up by Asheville. He's trailing it down here to Charlotte, and he loves it. It is perfect for him. Single guy, and just likes to go out and cruise around, doesn't load it up with a bunch of people, throws a tube behind it, has some fun, and he's enjoying it. And that's really what matters is it right for you? That's the key. But I think the boat holding up over the long haul, I think is going to be problematic. Have a toolkit signed up for the awesome, awesome, Kenny. Great to have you. Thanks for being here. Brock, good to have you, Brock. I got you confused with another Brock that was just Brock. I thought maybe you changed your screen name and your image there. Hope you had a good time at the baseball game. Hurricane Ian. Yeah, I think it may have been Ian. Boater Tom, can't think of a reason to use a broker unless shopping for a large, complex, expensive boat. Yes, for sure. Yeah, it's, on the used boat market, it's the boat. It's the boat, not the seller that you're buying. And so I don't have a problem buying from a broker. Just, somebody says they don't want to mess with the hassle of selling it. Not everybody wants to sell it. And frankly, for the 10% that they charge, it may not be worth it to put the time and effort into, when I sold boats, I sold a lot of brokerage boats. I brokered a lot of boats and sold them because I had a huge network of customers. I was really good at finding people that were looking for used boats and then finding the boat and matching them up. And there's value to be added there because now the other person, they pay, $2,000 or whatever it is. And I take care of everything and match them up. But ultimately, the broker probably doesn't inspect the boat. I did. I made all the boats that I brokered. I made them go to our shop, get a compression check, get the oil, gear lube, and impeller, verify when the last time it was done, and do just have a tech do it was like a $250 inspection, so that way I could represent that boat and know that it was good to my customer, and that way the seller knew before we even got started, this is boat that get this work done and I'll sell it, or I don't want anything to do with it. And it made it easier for me. Not all brokers do that. Some brokers will take anything and just try to move it. And those are the ones you got to watch out for. But again, it's the boat, not the person that you're buying. You just have to be aware that you can't trust everything they say. Do you know much about jet skis? I'm thinking of buying a vintage stands up. Here is the thing about jet skis. It's kind of the same thing I mentioned about the Switch and the Bayliners. There's a lot of people that own those that don't know how to take care of them properly. The person that buys the jet ski, they are sporty, they are fun, they're probably, I say beat it, but they're going to use that jet ski. They're going to go wide open throttle for long periods of times. They're going to be jamming it around. They bought the jet ski a lot of times because they didn't have the money to buy a boat. And so sometimes they don't have the money to maintain them the way they should be, or nobody tells them that, because the jet skis are sold much more like, all right, next. You don't get a lot of customer service when you buy a jet ski. You get here's your ski, here's your money. Thank you very much. Enjoy it. Take a boater safety course, maybe. And so a lot of times they don't get any training. They don't get told, hey, read the manual so that you know what your service schedule is. They don't tell them any of that stuff. They don't tell them not to run ethanol in it. And a lot of times they get run hard and then they sit for long periods of times. It's not a good combination. And when you say vintage, it's going to be a 2-stroke, which some of them are very, very temperamental. And I don't know, Jerry, if you're mechanically inclined, if you can do some wrenching yourself. If you can, and you're comfortable, you might be okay. But make sure you know somebody that can do the work on that ski before you buy it, because otherwise you might be buying something that just turns into a big giant paperweight in your garage that is too big to fit on your desk. I would stay away personally. if you're gonna buy skis, I would go to a good dealer. Again, a good dealer. I would go with Yamaha. I would go with Yamaha skis, and then maintain them really, really well, and run good gas, run gasoline, and maintain them properly over the winter. And that's how you're going to have the most fun with them. I don't think they're making stand-ups anymore. So you kind of, if that's what you're looking for, is that fun? Um, I think you're asking for a trouble at some point. All right. Finally got the boat to the lake, overheated, new impeller, but all fixed. Next weekend will be a long one on the lake. There you go. That is what it's about. Getting out there, and there's something. The other Brock's here. Yeah, exactly. There's always going to be something, and you just gotta keep up on that maintenance. Still debating whether I should go with the Dream Boat, save a little money with the Nitro. Yeah, it's I think for Brock, this is the thought. Not being a fisherman is what's gonna make the fishing more fun and more successful is the more. But you also like the speed, so there's that aspect to it. But what's gonna make you more successful fishing and winning some checks, winning some tournaments. That's the electronics I would imagine what's going to be a big value in winning. On the other hand, just having a bad boat to roll up in, and you've got, I don't know if you sold your electronics with your other one, um, but having some older electronics that you have used for a while. Yeah, it's a tough one. There's always trade-offs, as you well know in boating. What are your top 3 tri-tunes, freshwater in Tennessee? All right, mid-level tri-tunes. All right, so this is an easy one. So this video right here, best and worst tri-tunes. It's 2 years old, but I still hold the same opinion, except for Manitou. Manitou is still a great, well-built pontoon, I think. But the way they are going with their looks, I think they're a great built pontoon, and I think they're going the wrong direction. Personal opinion. And it's aesthetic, but it looks like the Switch. It looks like, look at that. This, yeah. I mean, it looks plasticky. It looks cheap to me. And that Rotax outboard it's going to be it's going to be a disaster. It's not going to work. I don't believe that they're selling hardly any of them. Dealers don't want to work on them. So I'm taking them out unless you go with the old. If you go with, and that's all they're promoting on their site. But if you go with just a standard outboard on their luxury model, now this pontoon I would put. I still don't like the looks of it. It just, to me, it looks, eh. But that's aesthetics. But that with an outboard on it, I can get behind. So I go, just to go watch the video though, because it's 25 minutes. I can go into a lot more detail, and I do luxury, mid-tier, and value. But Barletta, Manitou would be up there, but I think that brand's making a lot of bad decisions with BRP running the show. I think they're heading down the wrong path. my personal opinion, no inside information, just me watching from the sidelines, talking to dealers that carry those brands that aren't happy, that talk to local customers. I probably talk to more boat buyers than most anybody with these lives and in my comments. But that's on the ground. There's some dealers that are saying we stopped carrying them when we saw what they were pushing because they were pushing it and they're going the wrong way. Barletta, Old Manitou, Bennington, Harris would be top three, with Barletta being the leader. Caveat, better dealer trumps brand. Okay. So if I'm a premium buyer, Barletta, Bennington, Harris, if that's where I go, I don't care which brand it is. I'm going to the best dealer. Okay. In the premium category. Now, when I say Bennington and Harris, remember that Bennington's S class and Harris's Cruise class are built different. Barletta's Cabrio and I forget the other one. Their two lower level brands are built slightly different. They're built about the same as the standard Bennington and Harris. Yeah, Molly's in here. You want your dog? My wife is taking her dog back. But so better dealer trumps brand every time. Jerry's example, the dealer sat on the part and wasn't responsive, wasn't going to carry the warranty. You're going to have a better ownership experience with the better dealer, even if the other brand is maybe a little bit better built. I would go to the other builder if that dealer's better. Mid-tier, they're all the same. When I tell you they're all the same, I looked at 50 boat brands at a boat show and did all the pictures. I did it again last year. I didn't put the video together like I should have, but it was the same thing. Same seat bases, essentially the same upholstery. The thickness of the cushioning was about the same. The helms were the same. The seats were the same. The fence rails were the same. The decking down is essentially the same. Some use tech screws, some use the nut and bolt system. The ladders are essentially the same. When I tell you there's no difference in that mid segment, go to the dealer that is best in your area. I don't care if it's a Sweetwater Godfrey, if it's the SX Bennington or the Harris Cruise, or if it's a Crest, or if it's a Viaggio, or if it's any of the other 42 brands. And if you watch the video, I was there with, so Berkshire, South Bay, Trifecta, all three exact same boats, three different brands. And that's why I list them this way, so that you can see who owns what. Smokercraft, Forest River, Smokercraft owns Smokercraft and Starcraft and Sunchaser. They own three different brands owned by the same company. They build the Sunchaser different. Lund and Lowe, all owned by Brunswick. Harris owned by Brunswick. Cypress K and Harris, identical, just different brands. So there's all of these brands, but in that midsection, not only are they identical, but some of them are the exact same boat with a different badge on it. So in the middle, it doesn't matter. Go by dealer. In the value segment, go by dealer. They bunch up and they're that close. If there's a particular layout or option that you really, really like and the dealer is good, okay. But if the dealer's bad, is that option that important to you? That's how I would make that choice. And by the way, John, we were just on Lake Loudon and outside of Knoxville last weekend when it rained pretty much every day, whether we're there. Still raining today from what I understand. But if that's where you are, that's my in-laws have a place there. Agree 100%. Boater Tom got independent survey done. Yes, survey, especially on the cruisers. Jerry's 28-foot boat. It's a single engine, but you've got an engine, you've got air conditioning, you've got a generator, you've got plumbing systems, you got black water and gray water systems. You have a kitchenette, you've got a microwave, and you've got all of these systems. You've got strainers, you've got all of these systems that you have to be aware of. And any one of those could make a good buy into a horrible buy. Your AC goes out, you're talking 10 grand at a minimum to get that thing fixed. Your hot water heater, that goes out. You better hope you can get to it without pulling that engine out. And the generator, same thing. You better hope you can get to it without pulling that engine out. And there's things that you just, especially if you're new to boating, that you don't know. And those things that you don't know can get very, very expensive. Even experienced boaters will overlook things. They'll be like, "Oh crap, I should have noticed that, or I should have thought about that." And then a repair comes, and it's very, very difficult. John, go watch that video. I think you'll find that valuable. Mark, good to see you. Every time Baja boat passed my Bayliner, 4 times the speed. Yes. The secret cheapskate on the water. Mark, is the same. If I'm out running, I don't even need the gallons per hour gauge. I can kind of sense when the boat's at its right gallons per hour. But the other day I was running, and I was scrolling through, and I happened to put it on gallons per hour, and I was like, it was just my wife and I. My wife and I went out. She had finished up her semester at school, and their summer semester. So just her and I went out. The kids were gone, and we took a little bottle of champagne, and we had a little celebration and just hung out. And I was like, why am I running fast? We're not going anywhere. We're not in any hurry, until the rain came, and then we had to hightail it back to the dock. But that's you're not in a hurry. There's no reason to waste that gas. I'm with you. And get by without the fancy forward facing sonar, but the XP comes with one graph at the bow. So I would have split screen again. Okay. Yeah. I didn't realize that all the electronics went with the boat. Personal top picks for a cuddy cabin boat, inboard, preferably. You don't have many choices. Who did I see the other day, Bo? Regal boats. Regal has a cuddy, but it's only available overseas. It's their European model. That's where I found it. It is the LS4C, but that model is only available overseas. I have never seen this model. Obviously, I don't shop overseas yet. That would be a future goal, is to go to like Dusseldorf or something like that, to the boat show there, and check those kind of things out. But there's not many. I don't even have a top list. I really liked for older Bo, and 215 Express. This the Sea Ray 215 in the late 90s, early 2000 was a rock solid boat. That 215, I've run several of those. That boat is it's a tank, man. I'm telling you, that thing is solid. They built 21, 23, and 21. Was it 21 and 24? 21 and 24, I think. A 215 and a 245, I think, is what they built. But that one on the U side was a great boat. And they're, the 99, 11,000, that's in Maryland. 2,000, 12,000, that's in New York. Vermont, 10,000. 96 for 12 in California, Apple Valley. So I don't know if these are salt or not. But they made a good amount of them in those time frames. And if you can find a freshwater one, matter of fact, there was one around here for sale that I've been seeing when I was doing my research. That was a freshwater, but that would be a used one that I would look at. And on the new side, you just who was it? Campion. Oats Cuddy. But I think we determined that they weren't building that either. That's kind of more of a walk around, an 18. But that might still do the trick for you. It's an outboard. But I think that's the only one that they've got. With the Ranger, I had 3 graphs on the bow, 2 at the helm. Difference in the Nitro versus the Triton. Triton has enough on it to get by for a few tournaments until I could afford. Well, there you go. Yeah, I guess you could on the flip side is you can always add the electronics. You can't change the hull. Go for the budget friendly. It doesn't go away. Goods get more expensive the longer you wait. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. I need a cough button. Yeah, Boater Tom knows the itch doesn't go away especially when you're short a boat in the stable. Casey, when I see someone fishing in a channel, should I make the effort to minimize the wake? Try to be always, Casey. Oh my goodness. I might need to take my allergy pill. Hang on, I got another one coming. Yeah, you always here's the thing is if you can be courteous to another boater boating another style, they'll go away here shortly. If you can be courteous to another person boating in another style that's not your style, do it. Now, if they're somewhere where they shouldn't be, then don't be rude, don't be dangerous. But if you can, for me, and when you say in a narrow channel, if it's narrow and there's only so much space, then yeah, you might want to slow down if they're in a reasonable spot. For me, what I do a lot of times, if I see somebody fishing or I see somebody tubing or wakeboarding, what I do, when it comes to channel, it depends on how much room you have. But what I do is I tend to just give them a lot of space. I keep up on plane, and I even sometimes speed up a little bit because that's going to shrink your wake down a little bit. And I go around them and I push my wake. I go in a way that's going to push my wake away from them. So if they're here, I'm going to go around this way and I'll turn a little bit. And so that's going to put most of the wake off to the other side. Now, assuming that's not going to cause damage or be unsafe or be disrespectful to somebody else, that's what I do. Is I'm always scanning the water and saying, "Oh, I see that guy fishing up there. I've got some room. I can go by him. I can stay up on plane. It's not going to impact me at all. But I just will go out of my way and miss him." Like I said, I'm very seldom in a hurry. I'm very seldom in a hurry to get somewhere. So if I go out of the way, it's just a fun cruise for me. I don't need to take the shortest distance between 2 points. But it's very situational. Hang on a second. The allergy pills are kicking in here. It's very situational depending on how narrow that channel is, what the other traffic conditions are. But yeah, if you can do something to make somebody else's boating time be more fun and to not be cursing you, "Oh, that jerk," and it doesn't impact you greatly, go ahead and do it. It's just the friendly thing to do as a boater. Not 2 hours ago, I saw a nice 50 Sunseeker next to the Watergate complex in DC on the Potomac. What do you think of Sunseeker? Sunseekers are nice. Jerry, that starts to get a little bit out of my wheelhouse though. Because when I sold, the biggest I sold was a 45. The biggest I delivered was a 40. They couldn't quite get the financing for the 45, so they had to go with the 40. But I went down to Sea Ray Yacht Expo, where they had up to a 60-foot there. But my market was a small inland lake, and even when I go to boat shows, as much as I love those big yachts, my interest lies in the smaller. So I don't have a ton of insight there other than I know they make a great boat. And they're very, very nice. But like anything in boating, even the most expensive boat that you're going to buy, and even to a certain point, the more complex and fancy the boat gets, the longer that shakedown period's going to be. So, there's going to be things that aren't right. There's going to be things that need to be adjusted. There's going to be systems that they screwed up the plumbing, and the hot water got mixed with the cold water, or there's all sorts of weird things that happen when you're building a boat with a bunch of complex systems, that a screw doesn't get tightened, a hinge doesn't get adjusted properly. They use the wrong this on that, and it throws some things off. So that shakedown period on a 50 Sunseeker is probably going to be a year and a half of finding little things, tweaking it over and over. Where if you buy new, if you go with a broker and the pre-owned side, the nice part is a lot of that's already done. And somebody that's buying a 50-foot Sunseeker, they've got a yacht management company doing most of the work. Probably they've got all the service records, and you can get a better value by buying it a couple years old in a lot of situations, if you don't have to have new. And from your Regal, that might be the way to go. But I don't have a ton of insight other than they're super nice and well built, but I don't know where they rank in the whole scheme of things. I'm in Nashville area, Old Hickory, Jay Percy, Center Hill Lake. Awesome. Very good. You are welcome tonight. Thank you. What determines max horsepower on a boat length? If you're asking, let's see if I get this right. So if you're asking the lake's determination, it's usually going to be a private lake based on the size, or the HOA restriction. So sometimes in the inland lakes in the Midwest specifically, is there smaller lakes, and they'll say, we just don't want anything with more than 150 horsepower on it. And some of that is, okay, we are going to keep the speed down. We're going to keep the size of the boats down, which means we're going to keep the wakes down, which means that we're not going to have to replace our seawalls all the time or riprap all the time. Our docks are going to hold up better. And other times it's just, let's pick a number and put that restriction on it, because we want to control who's on the lake. If it's a private lake, that's usually the case. If it is a state-owned lake or a park, it's I don't know. I really don't know what it's attributed to, but I would say it's probably the size again, and the depth of the water is going to give you your restrictions there based on just some common sense. So, the boat length is going to be the same thing. If it's a private lake, with a bunch of homes on it with an HOA or something, it's going to be the owners saying that's what we want. And we don't want anything bigger than that. And if it's a state lake or a federal lake, it's going to be based on the size. Matt, good to have you. Mark, good to have you from down in Austin. How heavy was your crown line growing up? It was, I don't know off the top of my head, but it was a 222 crown line, see, I was 94. I'm going to say it was probably pretty close to that. Because Dad pulled it. It was right on the border. Dad pulled it with the Explorer XL. And 3,500 pounds is what. Sorry, you're not seeing what I'm seeing. 3,500 pounds is the net weight. And Dad pulled it with an Explorer. We had multiple Explorers that we pulled that boat with, and it was probably a 5,000 pound rating with that. The 1,000-pound trailer, fuel. We didn't have a lot of gear in it. We would usually throw that in the truck, and we were in Nebraska, so we didn't have to deal with many hills. Pretty straight shooting, pretty straight everything when you're in the Midwest. There are a few lakes back home that didn't have horsepower restrictions, but they were idle only. Oh yeah, that's another way to go. Small, 7,500 acres, narrow between mountain valleys. Yeah, that's another. And some of them are. I know in California they've got several that are electric only, so trolling motors only. And Mark Ferguson, small town, Chicago. Okay, all right. There is. What is his name? All right, this is going to drive me crazy now. We did a Mark. I did a podcast, Mark, with the Mark Ferguson. I'm almost certain it was Ferguson that bought a Harris down on a lake in Texas in Austin. Why am I missing that? It had the 350 mag. That boat was fast. It was fun to run. All right, Tony, I just saw you pop in. Thank you for the contribution, by the way. And Tony, I recognize your name, I think, from somewhere. Boating the lake, new to me. Want to test the marina fuel? Can you recommend 91 octane test kit? Can I help you? You want to say something? We've got a quick visitor here.
Hi. How
All right.
much longer?
We've been going hour and a half, so just a little bit longer. Okay. Here's one from Sierra. And all of their products, Tony, are really good. What are you testing for water? For water in the fuel, I would assume and ethanol, but that's probably the most important thing, is just to make sure that there's no ethanol in there and that there's no water in. But I don't know of, I've not used one specifically that I would say, hey, this is the best one. But I know the Sierra products in general are really good, and that would be a reasonable one to go. I feel like, Tony, that's a terrible answer for your contribution. But tell me if there's another reason why you want to test, just because you're nervous. One of the questions I would ask is, how often do you fill up your tank? I like to, when I'm getting straight gasoline, is to go somebody that turns their fuel over fairly consistent, so that you're getting not only good gas, but also you're getting that full 91 octane, because it's fresh. It's not stale gas that maybe has water in it too. But that would be the one. Drop a little bit more detail in there so I can keep provide more value for you. Ohio Ford fan, been looking for a Cuddy since winter. Was looking at Sea Ray, but see your history as Crown Line. How do they compare? The Sea Ray Cuddy cabins are better than the Crown Line Cuddies. Crown Line in the 90s, early 2000s, Sea Ray was significantly better than the Crown Line build in the Cuddy. They were also more popular, so you're going to be hard pressed to find Crown Line Cuddy 20, let's say 2000. They're still well built boats, but the Sea Ray Cuddies were just rock solid, and some of the Crown Line Cuddies were, I'm going to say, they were less stout. We'll just say that. Still nice, and again, I say this all the time to people that it is. It's more when you start going pre-owned, it's more about the specific boat you're buying than the brand that you're buying. Because that, this is a 23-year-old boat, a 2000, and yeah, Sea Ray may be built better. But if I was comparing a Sea Ray and a Crown Line, the Sea Ray wasn't taken care of well, then I would always take the Crown Line. That was excellent. That was taken care of very well. So that's going to be your balance right there, is the specific boat that you're looking at. But Crown Line in those years, they built a nice boat. They really, really excelled, I thought, in the bow riders at that time. And they did a Cuddy and it was fine. But I think that the Sea Rays were a little bit better. And part of the thing, if you look at the nose on the Crown Line always had that really sharp nose, that really pointed V-hull, and where Sea Rays wasn't quite so sharp, which carries into let's see if there's a picture. It carries into the V berth in the Cuddy. It's a little bit more roomy. This obviously is one that has some work to be done to it. Give me back in the cabin. But you can see that cabin that gets to be really narrow up here in the V berth, whereas the Sea Ray was a little bit wider and that point wasn't quite so dramatic. So you had a little bit more space down in the cabin as well. My father's neighbor, Crown Career War vet. What year did it become a thing for retired guys to go out solo fishing in their bass boat all alone? I'm not sure. My guess is that after what they went through, that just peace and quiet and not having anybody talk to them and to try to, I don't know if Ray's still on or not, but he was in Vietnam, but just get away from what they went through is probably has a little bit to do with it. Are engines today more powerful than those 20 years ago? I don't know. My gut tells me that they're not. That the older engines had more oomph, more torque. Oomph? You like oomph? that they were, but they weren't as quick out of the hole because they weren't as sophisticated. It was dumping gas into a carburetor and then going. Now everything's so dialed in with the computers and the exact right amount of gas mist with the fuel injectors and the multi-port, that they probably perform better. but the older engines were probably stronger overall, if that makes sense. That's just kind of a gut feel of it. I have zero basis. I don't have any science. I don't have any science to base that on. When you pull someone out of the water, is the torque that you're looking for acceleration? It's the initial acceleration, because and if it's just one person, the quicker that boat can get up going, the easier it is for them to get out of the water. Now, when I'm pulling my kids, the trick is to use little throttle, because they don't need much, and that rope will get pulled out of their hands. If you're pulling people up, if you're pulling a guy like me up, the quicker that boat can get going. And on your chaparral, it's not so much about the engine, it's about getting up on plane and getting to speed. That's the part that, because once that boat planes out, now I'm going to be able to pop up on top of the water as well. But as that boat's plowing, I don't have enough, and the boat doesn't have enough to get going. When you're pulling, like, we would always try to get as many kids up behind the boat as we could on one. When we went to the Ozarks, when we were like, I started skiing on one when I was probably 12. But from then on, my brother, my sister, myself, and then a bunch of our friends that skied with us, we'd have like 5 of us in the water that were pretty good slalom skiers, and try to get up. And then you needed that power. But even then, you needed to be able to get the power to get them pulled through the water, but you still needed to get that boat up on plane. And that was the key. We would put 2 people in the boat, but the watcher would be up in the bow, to keep that bow down and try to get it going. My dad, who was driving, would drive. He would put the hammer down, and then he would stand up and move. He was a bigger fella, move up to the middle of the boat where he could still drive, but his weight was as far forward as he could to get that bow to come down. That's the most important. Where does a young person go to train for engine? Bo Saint is his username. Is he went to MMI, Marine Mechanics Institute. Marine Mechanics Institute is one. Universal Technical Institute is another. Well, actually, that's MMI is their Marine division, but I thought that was a separate. That's the school that you go to. But a great way to do it is, if you've got somebody that wants to get into the industry, is tell them to go to any boat dealer where they are and say, hey, here's my story. I want to get into be a marine mechanic, and I'm willing to be an apprentice, and I'm willing to be a yard guy or a porter, or a boat detail guy. But I would like, if I prove myself, I would like you to train me a little bit, and then have them go to Yamaha University, Mercury School, Mercruiser School, Volvo School, and each of the manufacturers then has their own. But you've got to be sponsored by a certified dealer shop, right? So you got to be sponsored by somebody to go to those. You can't just go there as an outsider. But the Marine Mechanic Institute is one that it's kind of just a trade school. You go there, you learn the ins and outs, and then you go get your job. And then they start sending you to tech school to get your certifications to become a certified tech. And then if you're good enough and do it long enough, you can become a master tech, master certified, which is the top level. Great info. Thanks for going. Look at a 240 over. Yeah, those are going to be that 240 overnighter, the Express. All of those are great, great boats. All right. I can tell my daughter is waiting for me to snuggle with her. No, you don't want to go to bed yet?
No.
You look tired.
That's why I came in here.
Okay. Take your, if you don't have it yet, take your toolkit with you to keep you on check. That's my boat buyer's toolkit. Inboards probably aren't a lot more powerful than 20 years ago. Outboard. Yeah. That's, the outboards for sure. it was unthinkable, right? It was unthinkable that you could have a 450 horsepower outboard back 20 years ago. Hell, even until 7 came out with their big horsepower 10 years ago, nobody was thinking you could do a whatever 777 or their 527, I think was their first one that they came out with. Nobody was thinking along those lines in our world. Maybe the engineers were. How can we get there? But hey, you had a 250 horsepower on your bass boat or on your pontoon. You were big time back 20 years ago. They just that was as big as they got. My Shap gets on plane less than 3 seconds. Just me. Yeah, that's really quick. 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. That's about right. That's about right if a boat's well balanced and well powered. Ski behind a 9.9. That's another thing, Brock. I wonder if you would agree with this. Is that there's people that ski. I used to ski behind an 85 Mercury 4-stroke, the Tower of Power, and but there's guys that were skiing on 20 horsepower or whatever. And it seems to me that maybe those engines were producing a little bit more power than what they were rated for. They were also being run on little aluminum boats with very, very little weight in it. So that has something to do with it too. Boats, everything's gotten heavier. So anyway, all right, we're at hour 45, and I think we've just got somebody that's probably going to be spamming here shortly. So thank you guys very much. Oh, this holy rusted Andy. That seems like it's gonna turn into something. Holy Rusty, if you're not a spammer, I apologize. We've had a string of them lately. It's essentially, depending on what motor, it may be the exact same block and just tuned a little bit different and adjusted based on the computer. So the 250 horsepower, I'm going to say Yamaha. Yeah.
Rusty. That's me.
Here.
You have those white jackets?
Yeah, I do. Mine says something else on it. Okay. So, but if you look, the V6 right here, 300, 250. So the 225, the 250, and the 300 on Yamaha, they have a V6 of those. And so those are just tuned different. But they also, let's see here. Inline V6.
He said something.
He said something.
To turn.
Yeah, so let me check Merc.
Hello,
Mercury.
People.
Okay, all right. So you're right. You're a stern drive. I forgot that, the Merc Cruiser. Yeah, so those are different blocks, and it depends. All right, so here's Matt. Here's what you want to go look at. Boattest.com.
Why don't you go to go buy it?
Because I don't have this information. I don't. And you might have to. Let's see if I can. I'll have to. Let's see here. Torque curve on Merc Cruiser. 100 horsepower. You got a headache?
No.
So what you want to look for is this. It's called the torque curve, and I don't know. This is on a 350, the 6.2. So this is what you would want to look at. Is this torque curve rating? and it tells you where the power band is, like where the boat really gets going, and the torque and the horsepower at the different RPMs. So you can see that that torque goes up at about 4,500 RPMs, and that horsepower maxes out at, what is that, 55, let's say 5,500 or so, right there at the top of the graph. Let me go bigger on that. But each engine has its own torque curve, and I'm not skilled enough to give a interpretation of it. But that's where you can tell where the engine's going to be most powerful, and where it's going to perform the best. So the Merc Pro XS 300s are all the same V8s. Yeah. Especially on the outboards. I think the 225 to the 300 are usually, and even 200 to 300, oftentimes are the same, but I don't know that that's for every model that's out there. Yeah, the displacement means that you've got more power. It's kind of a shorthand for that. But this torque curve. Okay, so Holy, see, I called him out, and he is seems to be a legit guy. So that's going to be, Matt, you keep dragging me into this 250, 300 conversation, and I don't ever have a good answer for you. I start getting out of my lane a little bit, talking too detailed about the mechanical side of things. I know just enough to talk about it, but not enough to explain it. I don't, like, who is it that said, Einstein?
Me.
If you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough. And I would say that's where I'm at here. But look at the torque curves, and you'll probably gain what you're looking for. And the reason I pulled up Boat Test is because Boat Test has that information on a lot of boats. If you're going to be here, you can't be jibber jabbering, okay?
I'm not jibber jabbering. I'm singing a song.
Live in Florida Gulf Coast. Okay to keep aluminum boat stored in salt water. Fiberglass better. Live Gulf condo. So what you've got to be aware of is dissimilar metals and electrolysis. It can eat up your boat in a hurry in salt water. So any stray current is gonna destroy your boat. Let's see here. Let me see if I can pull up a this on. So what will happen is when you have two dissimilar metals together, hey, please stop. When you have two dissimilar metals touching, you're going to cause galvanic corrosion. If you have electrical current in the water, it's going to cause electrolysis. Either way, it's going to start eating away your metal, and it's going to eat away the easiest metal for that to get to, which is probably going to be your boat. That's why you have anodes and zincs on your boat. Aluminum boats are greater risk for electrolysis than a boat not made from metal. So your fiberglass boats. The current will flow through the water, stripping electrons from the metal components. The end result, it will be eating away. This can happen very, very quickly. So this is good. This is an anode that's designed to have that happen. But what I was hoping is to find a picture of, because what will happen is initially it'll put little pinholes in, and you won't even be able to see it. Let's see if I can pull up an image here. There we go. This is, so if you see those little holes, that's what can happen. So you've got to be diligent about making sure there's no current in the water, that there's no, even inside the boat, that there's no two metals that are connecting, that one's aluminum and one's stainless or something like that. because it can cause major problems, and that is a it's not fun. It's not fun. Sorry, late, had to catch up the replay. glad that you made it. Good to have you, Dustin. And we're going to be wrapping up here soon. So think the 300 V8 should have a broad torque curve versus the V6. Also, it's probably a little more efficient given the same boat. Yeah. Someone said way back that the only thing saltwater doesn't corrode is saltwater. Yes, that came from Captain Tim on who did the Confident Coastal Boater with me. The only thing saltwater doesn't destroy is saltwater itself. He helped me with the Confident Coastal Boater. He's a captain in Wilmington and is on the water every day. Wilmington, North Carolina, babe. Never tried to ski. All right, guys. Well, we're about 2 hours minus my gas break. And so they got it fixed. We're good to go. So I appreciate y'all joining. I appreciate you letting me go do my thing. Check out the boot camp. Check out the toolkit if you need to.
It's free.
Really gearing down new Pro XS. Yeah, that Pro XS would probably, but again, we're talking Mercruiser, which those Mercruiser stern drives typically aren't quick. They're not quick out of the hole because of the bow rise and because of the weight in the boat. So they're not as quick to accelerate to get up on plane. But it takes torque to get up on plane. So I don't know that those two are comparable. Anyway, all right, guys, I'm going to call it quit there. I feel like I'm not making any sense anymore. Tony, thank you for your contribution. I appreciate it. I apologize about my lame answer on that. But shoot me an email if you got a question in the future. Be happy to answer it for you. Thanks a lot. We'll catch you guys all next week. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thank you, both.